Welcome, Mouse Diva family, and welcome back to my channel. Many of you guys have been asking for over a year now for me to do a question and answer video, and I've been meaning to. Y'all have asked me like so many questions like on Instagram and things like that, and I'll just answer you guys. But I thought it was about time, and I thought the perfect opportunity would be today. Well, technically today is not today, but it's today for you guys. So it's my birthday. I thought, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, do a question and answer video for you guys and post it on my birthday. So I asked you a few days ago on my Insta story. I hope you're following me on Instagram. Just look up the Mouse Diva and you'll find me. So on my Insta story, I said I was going to do a question and answer, and I asked for some questions. Many of the questions were like variations of the same type of questions, which makes this a lot easier. But then I got to reading your questions later, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is not going to be as easy as I thought. You guys made this hard. There's some hard questions in here. Because I thought, I'll just, take a picture of all the questions, look on my phone, no big deal. And I'm thinking, I have to prepare for some of these when I started answering some of the questions. And I liked that they're not all Disney related. I gave no conditions, on my, I just said, ask me a question. So some of them are Disney related and some of them are non-Disney, personal related, whatever. Mr. Mouse Diva had came in while I was making some notes, and he's like, what are you doing? I thought you were gonna film the Q&A. And I was like, I thought so too, but some of the questions are hard. I'm having to like think about these. And I said, he's like, well, give me, a hard question. And so, for example, one of those hard questions, this one I got a lot of variation kind of on the same question. But, what's the most expensive piece in your collection? So I told Mr. Mouse Diva, I said, I think I'm over analyzing this question because it could go so many different ways on my answer. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And so I was telling him, explaining, and he's like, oh, you're not just over analyzing, you're creative analyzing, you're mistakenly analyzing. He says, my gosh, at the rate you're going, in my explanation to him, I said, you could do a whole vlog. And I'm like, I could do a whole vlog? He says, you should do an entire vlog just on that one question, because what you're telling me, you have that material. Huh. You know what? Told him, I said, yep, I'm gonna go with your idea. And on the question on my most expensive item or piece in my Disney collection, I'm actually gonna do an entire different vlog on that. So I hope you subscribe, hit that bell notification button, because that will be coming up soon. So when did I start collecting? Let's just say that I am a collector, honestly, naturally, however you want to say it. My dad is a collector and always has been. He actually collected more antiques. Growing up, we had an entire bedroom that we weren't allowed in. It was called the antique room. It wasn't actually a bedroom. It was a room just full of my dad's collections. So I started collecting at a very young age, not just necessarily Disney items, but my various collections. I would say I didn't technically start collecting Disney items well into my adulthood, and I do gravitate towards a lot of vintage items too. You guys really don't see that. You just see what I bring home from the parks, or just collections like the Funko Pop or the trading pins. But I would definitely say basically in my adulthood. What started your love of Disney? I grew up with the wonderful world of Disney at 7 p.m. I think on Sundays. Now, I'm too young for Wonderful World of Color. That was a little bit before my time, but that Wonderful World of Disney, I just grew up on that. And I think between the movies and the whole, just that fantasy world of Disney World that I knew I was never going to get to as a kid. Matter of fact, I had no friends. I don't even remember anybody from my school that went to Walt Disney World. I actually grew up in Virginia, so it wasn't like we were close. I just don't ever remember anybody going to Walt Disney World. So that was like this fantasy trip that was just out of my realm at that time. You know, we were just middle-class family. You know, my parents would struggle to buy me an Izod polo shirt that everybody was wearing. And that is what started my love of Disney. My first touch of it was just watching the Wonderful World of Disney. When was your first Disney trip? That would be 1993. So I was in my early 20s before I finally got to go to Disney World. A friend of mine and her grandparents lived in Vero Beach. So we were living on the upper part, the northern part of North Carolina at the time. And we decided we were going to go visit them. And while we were there, we were going to do one day at Magic Kingdom. And then we were trying to decide between MGM and Universal Studios. And ultimately we decided on the other day being Universal Studios. So Magic Kingdom was my very first trip, just one day in my early 20s. Let's get to a non-Disney question, and that is, where did you meet Mr. Mouse Diva? One day we were on the beginning of an ice storm, and I needed to go to the store. And when I carefully got out of, you know, I had the sense enough to get out of the car slowly because I knew that the parking lot was already starting to ice over. And I got out real slowly, and yep, it was extremely slippery. And I went around the vehicle. I saw this guy getting out of his vehicle, and he slipped. And like, it didn't even occur to him it was going to be slippery, and he totally slipped before the door. Like, he slipped in between the door and the inside of the car, and he fell. So of course I you know, run over to kind of help him, and yeah, that is a complete fabrication. So actually that is not how Mr. Mouse Diva and I met, but that is the exact story of, I think it was our second date. And it was getting icy, but you know, second date, we were both kind of, you know, really wanted to see each other. So we didn't want to cancel the date. So we were going to the movies. And I got out of the car very carefully because it was slippery. And I went around at the vehicle, and he slipped. Like, his hand was still on the door, and he slipped, and there was no helping him. I cracked up. Like, the fact that I actually did not pee in my pants is a miracle, because I was horse laughing him. I had tears in my eyes, and it was just the look on his face as he fell, the disbelief, and then of course afterwards kind of the embarrassment. But I thought it was the funniest thing ever, and just the fact that he stuck around with me after I laughed at him for falling says a lot for Mr. Mouse Diva's character. But how we actually met, let's get to the question, how we actually met is a lot more boring than that. There is, where the county we live in, they have like a leadership community organization. It's kind of almost like a class, and you meet once a month for 9 months, I think, and you just tour different factories and facilities around the community. Like I said, it's just based on leadership and stuff, and we actually met in that class. But we didn't actually start really talking into the last class. We were just acquaintances. And then that last class, which was graduation, we'll say graduation, we actually talked a little more deeper, I guess. And I think we kind of communicated every now and then through texts maybe. And then I think months later, out of the blue, he just called and asked if I wanted to have lunch. So had lunch and went from there. All right, let's get back to a Disney question. If you could collect only one character, who would it be? Oh my gosh, the pressure. I'm reading this and I'm like, you guys are putting so much pressure on me. How can I answer that question? How can I pick just one? I would hurt so many of the characters' feelings. But the first character that comes, like, I can't even, like, how am I supposed to choose between Jiminy Cricket and Remy and Chip and Dale? I mean, how do you choose? But ultimately, first thing that comes to my mind would be Oswald. And that's just because he was Walt's original. You know, not Mickey Mouse, not even a mouse, but Walt's original. But there's not a lot of Oswald merchandise out there, which makes it even more collectible. But the, you know, buyer in me says Mickey Mouse because there's more Mickey Mouse merchandise. So yeah, I think this is just too much pressure for me to actually answer. I'm gonna fail at that question because I just can't give you one answer. Sorry. Do you work outside of the home? Yes, I do. I work about 15, 17 hours a week, and I also homeschool my son. If you got to pick, would you rather go to Disneyland Paris or Tokyo Disneyland? Oh, Tokyo, without a doubt. That will definitely be our first international Disney park. I just need to get to Disneyland first. I haven't been able to get away from Disney World long enough to get to Disneyland, because that's going to be such a larger cost because my annual pass doesn't cover Disneyland. You've got that flight from North Carolina to California, so it's a much larger, you know, financial chunk, and I would actually have to cut down on, you know, I'd have to give up at least 2 Disney trips to compensate for that, and I just haven't been able to do that yet. We know what you do for fun now. What did you do for fun as a kid? As a kid, I would rub butter in a brand new velvet chair. I would flush money down the toilet, and I would run door to door in the apartment complex that my parents lived in and ring doorbells and run away. So that was when I was a little bit younger. And then the battery dies. Then as I got older, I graduated to climbing trees, playing flag football with all the boys, and playing softball. Also played as a teen. I did 1 year of soccer because I maxed out in age. They just started a soccer league in our town, and I could only play for 1 year. It was a co-ed team, or co-ed league. And then I also did 1 year of basketball. I was point guard. If you could work at one attraction for the summer, which one would it be? I think it would be so fun to work, you know, the trams at the park, the person in the back who basically does all the talking. I would think that job would be perfect for me because I love to talk. I would talk non-stop. Like, as soon as everybody got on the tram, and from our tram ride to the front of the park, oh my gosh, I would be singing, I would be interacting and calling out and calling on different guests, and I would be doing trivia, I would be telling jokes, but I would totally talk nonstop and probably drive everybody insane. Some people would get my humor, some wouldn't, but I think it would be pretty fun. And then I reread the question, and it said something about summertime, and I thought, oh no. In the summer, on the parking lot, where just heat engulfs you, thought, okay, no, that's not gonna work. So Mr. Mouse Diva and I have actually talked about this before, like in retirement, that the perfect thing for us to do, the water taxis, the boats that take you, you know, from Beach and Yacht to Epcot or Hollywood Studios, that would be like perfect for us. Like if we could actually like work together, because he would love to actually, you know, drive the boats, and I would love to be that other person that gets to talk on the microphone. I told him, I said, I would sing It's a Small World so many times that I'd probably get fired from the job. But Then I read the question and I'm like, well, that doesn't work either because it's not an attraction. This particular question says attraction. So I have to go with Haunted Mansion. It's one of my favorite attractions and I would love to act that part. Oh, I could really get into that character. Like, I would scare the bejeebies out of people because every time that door opened, you know, when you're waiting your turn to actually go in out of the queue, my face would be right there. Or like, I'd throw my hand through the door, something, but I could get into character so well, depending on how much Disney gives me freedom to come up with my own, what, you know, everybody's used to them saying, okay, everybody get in the dead center of the room, but I would add so much more if I was allowed to. So I'm definitely going to say Haunted Mansion. Why have you never taken a Disney cruise? That is an extremely complicated answer. That's a deep answer. We'll call it deep, not complicated. I have taken a cruise, not a Disney cruise, in my early, I think it was 23. Mr. Mouse Diva has never taken a cruise. Of course, the kids have never taken a cruise. We have decided against a cruise for at least 8 years, probably. Reason being, our kids would be devastated if we went on a cruise without them. Plain and simple, why we haven't taken a cruise is we can't afford to take 7 people on a Disney cruise. So that is something that we're gonna have to wait and take when we are older and the kids are out on their own, and we can say, if you want to cruise with us, then you pay for it. There you go. So a lot of these questions, there were different like variations of the same types of questions. But so I kind of combined some of them or reworded them so that I wasn't really having to answer the same question over and over. But I am going to just kind of cut it short because I know that I ramble and I know that this is kind of getting long. So I'll just do another Q&A, and if I didn't get to your question, I already know that you follow me on Instagram, so just keep an eye out for another Q&A prompt and you can ask me that question again. But one last question. The question I saved for last is, how old are you going to be on your birthday? And to answer that question, I will just say that I am extremely partial to the year that Magic Kingdom opened. I am very partial to any merchandise, Disney World merchandise, that has the year Disney World opened on it. And I will definitely, without a doubt, be going to Disney on my 50th birthday, which obviously I'm not at Disney now, so you know it's not my 50th birthday. I'll let you read in between the lines there, and that is how old I am as of today, April 21st. Guys, I really enjoyed answering these questions, even though they were so hard. I look forward to the next set of questions when I eventually get to them. I hope that you are having a lovely day. Easter for many of you. I know some of you don't celebrate Easter, but in that case, I just hope you're having a lovely spring day, and I will see you at the parks.
I've been all around the world, every city, every place, always